Oh, actually, it looks like it's in there already. Okay. So you want to pause that?
In the year 2021, everyone records everything. But in the year 2004, that was sci-fi.
I feel like maybe a few less things are recorded now,
By you.
unless you have like I don't know, cameras in your house, which maybe you do.
And
But,
you have not been around many Gen Zers. They record everything.
Okay, good point. Yeah, we record everything these days. We have our little tracking devices in our pockets here, right? Surveying.
Yep.
I've had a conversation on the phone and then got ads for it the next day. So,
well, that's one way in which George Orwell's 1984 got something wrong. Big Brother didn't kick down our doors and install surveillance equipment. We did it ourselves.
I keep it in my pocket because it's convenient. Although I did get a weird leg infection a few years ago. Maybe that's because of the phone.
Ooh. Oh, is that a phone in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?
That's right. It's an infection in my pocket.
And Matt, who are we happy to see today?
It's Ken Ami coming back. You're pretty much almost a regular here, writer of transhumanist, occultist, interesting books. You can go in deep rabbit holes with Ken's books. So thanks for joining us again.
Thanks for having me.
So I didn't know this film existed.
I was gonna just let me pause a sec. That's one thing I love is to introduce sci-fi nerds to some movie they've never heard of before.
Right. And I realized I probably would have, but this was 2004, which is the year I first came to Japan. And I had like wrap your head around this now, like a 2-month complete, like electronic blackout. I had no connection to anything for 2 months. Luke, did you have that when you first came to Japan? You have your blackout period?
Somewhat, but Wi-Fi was very prevalent.
So okay.
When I was at my hostel or whatever, I had it.
Yeah, this was 2004. So
but when I went, I did go and stay on a farm for like just under a month, and I had zero Wi-Fi, zero connection to any electronics then.
Yeah, so
I just lived in the mountains, wrote a book, picked vegetables. It was great.
So especially a summer of 2004, I wouldn't have known like much of what was going on. I finally, near the end of summer, managed to know Spider-Man 2 had come out and like planned out my first major solo trek in Japan to go see it because the theater was about, 8-9 kilometers away. So I learned to ride a bicycle in order to do that. Because I learned to drive a bus when I was 21, but I learned to ride a bicycle when I was 25.
So unlike Matt, I actually did see this film when it came out back in 2004. At that point in time, I was still obviously living at home. I was 13, 14. My uncle would supply us with all the latest movie releases because, he had legitimate backups that he made to protect his discs, wink, wink. So basically, we were watching any sort of sci-fi or action movie that came out at that time. So no matter how obscure, if it was in the Blockbuster, we probably had a copy in one of our big binders full of labeled with a pen discs. So I remember it. I remember the concept very well, but none of the beats of the film, which I think speaks to this film's strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, very high concept. For me, this is the kind of film I would have seen if I wasn't in that weird period, because I even went to see like Sim 1, right? Of course, Gattaca, that's a great one that we haven't gotten to yet. Other films like that, I would go out to see the high concept sci-fis. This just happened to be in the window where I didn't.
Right.
Deja Vu wasn't too long after this. I did see that in the theater. So
is that the Denzel Washington one?
That's right, where he's time traveling. So Ken, you brought this one our way, so obviously it's piqued your interest in a certain way.
Now, I probably watched this when I discovered it, which was just a couple of years ago, and it's not, well, I find that it's just within the Robin Williams genre. This one is virtually unknown, right? I mean, if you say Final Cut Robin Williams, most people just do not recognize this movie as being one in which he starred. And I would imagine, I'm pretty sure I ran across it just when I was researching transhumanism and then figuring out that, well, I think I want to do a book of movies on transhumanist themes, and just happened to run across this one on some or another list and was really shocked. Like, this is a Robin Williams movie? What? No. Never heard of this, but yeah, I think it had a lot going for it thematically in terms of the potential that this sort of high tech would have on the world.
Well, think of it just being just before the, Facebook really didn't get liftoff until 2 or 3 years later. And do we have MySpace in 2000? We had MySpace already, I guess. And
yeah. It's also the fact that we had the phones, but not the smartphones where it's so easy to just open your camera, zap.
Right, we had the flip phones. Yeah, again, that first time I was in Japan, I would have to go to the the NTT office where they had computers you could use, or the public library, and then do it from there. We didn't have the mobile stuff, and I didn't have a phone at all for the first few months. So,
and thank God, when I was younger, we didn't have any such devices, because I would hate to see what I would have recorded and posted back in the day.
That.
Yeah, you can see a bunch of dumb shit I made when I was in my teens. I still stand by some of it. I think it's great.
You see Luke mutilating himself for YouTube, attacking snowmen, doing Batman stunts.
Yeah,
poorly.
Doing horse tattoos.
Horse?
Horse tattoos.
That's how I got covered, because it's got my ex-girlfriend's horse.
Oh, that one. Okay. Sorry, I was thinking.
Yes, I bring it up every episode.
I just remember the Triforce most of the time. But before we delve a little deeper in this, I guess I will go ahead and summarize. I'll bring that up. Okay, so the story. Alan Hackman's childhood trauma is accidentally leading another child, Lewis, to an abandoned warehouse death at age 10. He's now 51 and a cutter, a person who edits the life of the recently deceased. All of their life memories have been recorded by an I Corporation Zoe implant, and it is the cutter's duty to edit those memories into a respectful 2-hour movie. Since cutters will see the warts and all the visions of their subjects, they cannot have the implants themselves. Alan has been tasked with cutting the life of I-Corps scumbag Charles Bannister. Things get shady quickly as Fletcher, a former cutter, offers Alan $500,000 for the footage, and Alan discovers that Bannister had been diddling his own daughter. He also finds footage of an adult Lewis, who did not die in the warehouse incident, but instead a year ago at age 50. Alan goes as far as to break into the Zoe archives to find Lewis's memories. He fails in that regard, but discovers that he himself has a Zoe implant and embarks upon a dangerous procedure to scan his own memories. It does heal his lifelong trauma, but Fletcher still wants the Bannister data. Though it has been destroyed by Alan's way too angry, well, not way too, that must be a spell
way too
check.
Young, angry.
A way too young, angry girlfriend. There we go. I got my synonyms a little mixed up. Fletcher has also learned that Alan has an implant, and thus his implant has seen the Bannister footage. He has his henchmen take out Alan in a graveyard and puts the footage incriminating Bannister online. He's an end justifies the means sort of guy. Ken, you already said it. It's a Robin Williams film, so I guess we should talk about Robin Williams a bit here. This was a weird one because I feel like I haven't seen much of his films in the past few years. It's almost like too depressing to watch since he's died. And here we get faced with like a full-on depressing Robin Williams.
I wonder if that's a big reason why it doesn't have a following now, even after his death, because who wants to watch a grim Robin Williams movie right
Again,
now?
He's very good.
Oh, he's great.
But
if you're like, oh, I miss Robin Williams, I'm going to go watch a Robin Williams film, you're not going to pick this.
Yeah, see, my thought was, I miss Mork. I want to see Mork. You do not get Mork here. That's for sure.
No, I've got a parcel arriving.
Oh, Luke has a package. I don't know if you can hear the ringing or not. But
good. We can do a live package unveiling.
We might have a live. Luke tries to speak broken Japanese to the guy that's
let's listen in, folks.
Yeah.
Nice. They normally, if it's a package, they know they're going to get far enough because they can see my name.
Just tell them Toido wa doko desu ka?
Radio. But well, Ken.
No, let's see the package. What do you got? Come on.
It doesn't look like we have a package. Do we not?
They've got to come up the stairs.
He beeped them in. There's like a delay factor. So if you want to talk about Robin Williams in the meantime.
Sure. I mean, I don't even know how many movies he made. There's some I've just not been interested in enough to watch, but it is a fact that he could do the comedy and he could do the drama. And he could do both very well. So in this case, because the storyline is of him having suffered a terrible childhood trauma, which he carries around with him, then he's, in a sense, very much stuck in a rut in his emotions and in his life. So, in fact, he's told by his apparent girlfriend in the movie that he needs to start living his own life instead of being so cloistered and watching other people's lives go by on the screen, right? So, but you could see how he would feel the guilt of living and enjoying his own life because he thinks that he is responsible for the life of the boy. When they were playing together and the boy died, he has carried that with him. So he obviously feels like he does not have a life of his own to live. He doesn't deserve that. He took a life. And so now he devotes his life to cleaning up, shall we say, the lives of others. In fact, it is said that he is the cutter that looks at the ugly stuff.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, and we're talking. I would say that one of the aspects that struck me is that he's working most of all for the elitists. It's just cleaning up those nasty bits of their lives, and he is accused of that he makes lies of them, and he takes murderers and makes them saints, right? So he's the guy known for dealing with the worst of the worst and then putting them forth as having been, upstanding members of the elite society when they were, like, as you mentioned, in the case of the main one we're dealing with, the man who passed away was a pedophile. Well, he's going to clean that up. That's just going to go away, right?
Right.
The line which he had to defend that, I actually really liked, where he said, "I'm just good at forgiving people when it's way too late to punish them."
Okay. See, I was going to throw out the line about his I'm a sin eater. I live slightly outside of society. Okay. That's his excuse for not having his own life, basically.
The other one I liked was he said, she was talking about how, these people don't have any respect for the dead. He said, "I don't care about the dead. I have respect for the living." Like, he's not doing this to protect that person's memory. He's doing it so the family can move on.
Right. And the wife had told him that her deceased husband deserves to be remembered as a great man.
Are we sure?
Whether she knew what he was up to or not, that's kind of the point, is that he is the sin eater. He is going in to remove that sin and presenting these people as a great man, whereas so the point of the implant is that obviously you would literally see everything that they saw through their eyes and hear everything they heard through their ears. So the cutter knows absolutely every possible, most intimate detail of a person's life. I mean, how horrible would that be, incidentally? I mean, some people's lives are open books, okay? But there's a lot of books I don't want to read. And so this touches upon the issue of the cutters not being allowed to have the implants, because obviously if they're watching what the other person watched throughout their whole lives, then that's what ends up turning basically the implant in his brain into a commodity that was desired.
It's kind of a futuristic Santa Claus. He knows when you've been sleeping, he knows when you're awake. Once you're dead, that is.
Yeah.
Now, Zoe is a Greek word for life, and you noted in the notes you mentioned if all the eyes meant anything, and obviously it is. It's recording through the eyes, right? The company's called Eye Tech.
And that was the little strain of sarcasm I have left living in Japan.
Incidentally, you definitely need to post your show notes on the webpage for these episodes, because they're like stream of consciousness. I love it.
There you go. I'll put it on the Patreon.
But so the concept is that when a baby is born, the implant is inserted into their brain, and it's organic, so it grows along with the brain. Now, we don't have anything exactly that high tech yet, but for example, something called memory, which is kind of a low tech version, but it's something that you would wear on your head, and it would literally record everything that's going on around you. That's already been around for years. It's not like people are walking around doing that. It's not popular, but it's out there already, that sort of thing.
Well, people wear like the GoPro for like when they're doing like extreme sports or something, or adult videos. So we're, but obviously everyone can see you're wearing a camera on your forehead, so it's not like you're discreetly recording.
I just saw an article, maybe you did too, because we have this thing called, I get it off the internet, called Breaking News English, just for teaching private lessons sometimes. And it was Mitsubishi makes a mind control car. It didn't really say, I mean, maybe it's just turning on your air conditioning. I don't know if it's actually like maneuvering the car, but the idea is it would map your brain responses, and you'd be able to, think of things for the car to do.
Well, I think Hawking was using a lot of that sort of thing by the end, because he couldn't even like type and move his cheek.
Right.
So there are a lot of, I think it's electroencephalogram.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting pretty decent even 10, 15 years ago.
And I remember in the movie Firefox with Clint Eastwood, he was tasked to go to Russia and steal a super high-tech secret airplane that was controlled by thoughts. But since the Russians built it, he had to think in Russian in order to get the plane to do what he wanted it to do.
I hope he watched The Clockwork Orange. Learned his Russian by osmosis.
Yeah.
Of course, Jesus is in this movie.
Yeah. So I was watching it. The only thing I remember about this film were the vague elements of the plot and Robin Williams himself. So when I'm watching the opening credits and it says Jim Caviezel, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm in for a ride. Do you know much about this dude?
Not a whole lot. I actually was letting you say the name because I don't think I've ever heard it.
So obviously he did Passion of the Christ. He then went on to do this TV show. I think it's Person of Interest.
Right. Which is very much in keeping with this movie. It's all about super secret high tech.
Yeah, it's about like they have an algorithm that identifies criminals or whatever, and he gets to them. But turns out the dude is batshit insane.
How so?
Like on set, he would just be like, he claims to be this super Christian guy, but then he demanding more and more and more violent scenes all the time, to the point they had to just write the show around him never getting to do any fights or stunts, because he would just like punching and throttling co-stars and crashing cars and shit constantly. And now he's super all in on the like QAnon children of adrenochrome filming shit, and he's making a based on a true story movie about the guy who apparently shut down the underground child trafficking rings that was collecting children for Hillary Clinton to eat their blood or whatever.
At least it's shut down then.
Now, the one thing I definitely did not like about this movie was his fake beard.
Yeah.
No, you just wanted to grab the edge and one rip right off. Come on. How long could it possibly take to grow a beard that they would have to do that?
He looked, because of the shit beard, he looked so much like the guy in the first Die Hard. You know, the like crap co-worker you're just waiting for them to kill? It's the same like 80s, 90s, I think I'm a hotshot, shit-eating grin beard that you just ate. Also, he's just not a great actor.
I mean,
like
fine.
every line felt like he was reading it off the cue.
I thought he was fine as, the somewhat nefarious presence.
But maybe it's just that no one's going to look great when all of their scenes are just them and Robin Williams, right? Just stealing the show.
Yeah, you could have nuanced it a little more, because he did come across as basically nefarious.
But he also had a lot of exposition, right? So there are not many actors who are good at making that stuff work.
Mira Sorvino basically shows up as the woman, which
yeah, the little twist where it turned out that he'd discovered her because he'd previously seen her in someone else's memories was
right, her deceased boyfriend.
Yeah, a nice part of the the concept.
That's Facebook.
But she
working
herself
now.
didn't get to do very much, right?
Yeah, well, she destroyed the Bannister data, but
Yeah,
and his whole system actually.
Let's talk about that system for a minute. You mentioned the hipster keyboard, and that you would want a wooden keyboard. And yeah, I like the computer equipment because it was somewhat toned down, a little retro, and maybe reductionist steampunk, I would call it, because steampunk can get very elaborate, but this was more just reductionist, like the keys themselves and the whole setup were made of wood. So that was very, organic. And it's very simplistic too, right? So in sci-fi movies, they either tend to go way where everything has little knobs and flashing buttons and there's 1,000 of them, or just very minimalistic. And I like the look of the equipment in this movie.
I actually think it rang very true, because if this was a real service, and like, your grandfather had passed away and you wanted this guy to make this video, you wouldn't want it to be some hipster looking kid on his iMac, right? You want it to be like, here's this calming older guy, he's going to sit down at this wooden, very traditional looking machine and he's going to do something. It feels like if this is a big part of like the funeral process, you want it to be a very wooden, traditional, organic looking piece of kit.
Well, they gave him a very not mortician, but funeral home sort of vibe, right?
Yeah.
I mean, from the start, like he talks, it's like the scene, The Big Lebowski, where how we with that, the guy with trying to be as professional as he can as water screams at him. But I'm actually not quite sure I want a wooden keyboard because I got a splinter a few weeks ago, and then now it's still a bump. So yeah, that was from an old Japanese house. So yeah.
No, what I want is, like my Nintendo 3DS, just wood effect, but it's actually plastic. But yeah, I don't think I want to be stabbing bits of wood with especially when you type like I do. I only use my forefingers. I never learned how to type. This might just be there on the wood.
Though, I play guitar, so I'm quite interested in what wood goes into what guitars and what I'm playing. And, when I've screwed up enough times, I'll just like inspect the grain of the wood on the guitar. Sometimes it's fun, right? It's a meditation.
Yeah, most of my life has been spent worrying what wood goes where.
Right. But yeah, something I just noticed, I looked at like a couple user reviews on IMDb, and someone mentioned like, yeah, it's not so much of a future thing as a parallel reality thing, because it's basically today. I mean, these implants have been going for at least 60 years, right? So
yeah, a lot of these, now I've noticed this more in sort of the past 30 years, where if you have a very high concept sci-fi like this, it's the only sci-fi element in the film.
Yeah, Gattaca in Time definitely do that.
Whereas when we watch more of like the 70s sci-fi we'd be watching, they'll have their main high concept, but they also build a full sci-fi world around it.
Well, you just did Soylent Green, where they pretty much did not.
But no, but it wasn't just about the Soylent. There was also all these other elements of this world, whether it's overpopulated. Okay,
there were a lot of changes, of course. Whereas here, it's very much where we live. In fact, it's where we live now, basically, at this point, isn't it? We just don't have 50 years of detailed memories on 1/20th of the people.
But now let's keep in mind that since these are installed at birth, then your parents decide for you, and you almost don't have a choice. Now, when one of your notes said tattoos to erase memories is a flippy concept. So the issue is, right, let's say that you're growing up and you realize you have this implant and it's recording everything you see and hear. Then they develop these tattoos, or really they developed ink that contains certain metallic alloys that if you get them tattooed on you, they interfere with the Zoe implant, so it can no longer record. And so that's what some of the people in the movie are seen doing. Some of them with very elaborate face tattoos, to the point where when Alan goes to get his own tattoo, when he finally learns, unbeknownst to him, he does have a Zoe. He wants to get that. He doesn't want that. He wants something very subtle. And he's told, well, he asked, do I have to get my face tattooed? He's like, no, those guys are just rebels, right? They just want to make a point of showing it off. But no, you can just get a subtle one, and he gets one behind his neck, incidentally, which looks like a pause button. Did you notice that?
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
the two
definitely.
which is
Well,
quite fitting, really. But it wasn't actually just tattoos, because it was almost like a branding scar. It was
yeah, it was
partly
raised.
tattooed
It was
ink,
like
yeah,
put
and
in.
part raised. So anyhow, that was the point with that, is that that there was a way to block this and prevent it from happening, even if you did still have the implant in your head, it wouldn't
Well, yeah,
work anymore.
she said it only blocks going forwards. So everything up to that point is still recorded. So
And
yeah,
still
there is no way
accessible.
of opting out.
So he went in and he got the tattoo to block the audio. And once that healed, he was supposed to go back and get the follow-up, which was the tattoo to block the video. But he never got that far. But that's why his Zoe implant was still desired, because it had still recorded up until it was still recording a video, and then it had recorded audio to the point of that he got the tattoo. So right, that's why that was desired.
The man who knew too much, yes. But
Yeah.
and the idea of how difficult it was to access his own memories. I mean, you think if it's like, no, it doesn't matter till you're dead, and the cutter has a look at it. It's like you can't review your own memories, which seems like a design. I don't know.
Well,
Is
that sounds
design
like
flaw?
a more useful technology than a technology that lets someone have a look when I'm dead.
Yeah.
I'd quite like to be able to I don't really remember what happened on that. Well, like he does, right?
Oh, well, he finds his memory is wrong, whereas the recorded memory is different.
That concept is interesting, the idea of how wrong we can remember things. For the film, I actually really didn't like that conclusion.
Of course, that's a 10-year-old's memory as well.
Yeah, but it reminds me a lot of science fiction, a lot of time travel films. They use the time travel to basically just erase whatever the problem was.
Yeah,
which I find is just quite cheap storytelling.
Let's elucidate that just for a second. So the movie begins with a little boy, Alan, making a brand new friend because he's off somewhere he doesn't actually live. They were vacationing or whatever. And so they go into this abandoned factory, and they're crawling across a board over an open space. And Alan's kind of being a pushy little tough guy brat. So the kid follows him, even though he doesn't really want to, but we'll be boys. And he ends up falling, and you see like just stream of blood pooling on the floor. And Alan goes down there to look at the kid, and he said, okay, I mean, this is just a bloody mess. The kid's dead. I'm out of here. And then he leaves town. And that's what haunts him for the rest of his life, is because I encouraged this kid to walk that little plank. He fell and died. And so that's what he's carrying with him. But then when he reviews the Zoe implant recording, he sees that the kid does move a little bit, and that what he remembered as being a pool of blood was actually just a spilled can of paint that he was stepping on. And so in his memory, he turned that whole scenario into something about which to be guilty, where the reality was, well, okay, yeah, the kid got hurt, but he didn't die.
Well, even in terms of Alan's actions, the real version, he's telling him not to do it. He's
right,
saying,
that's
stop,
true.
stop,
Yes.
It's not safe. And the kid's like, nah, it's fine, and does it.
Right. So it's almost like he increased his guilt. he increased the part that he played in it, just out of the guilt he felt for it.
Which
But that's one
definitely a thing people do, right? Like you blame yourself for things. It's like, well, actually, other people make their own decisions. Like,
yeah.
But now another aspect of it. So this was a case of the Zoe revealing the true memory in place of the faulty. Okay, the true recording in place of the faulty memory. But there are certain instances, however rare, where there's a defect in the Zoe implant, and it can't discern between the reality of what a person's looking at or listening to versus their dreams, for example. So it's recording dreams, and then it becomes like a totally surrealistic recording. So that's an interesting aspect too, which touches upon the real life concerns with hypnosis, is what made me think of. is that people talk about that, how can you guarantee that a patient undergoing hypnosis is actually recalling memories and not fantasies or dreams or desires or whatever it may be? So that's actually a real life issue.
No, what it made me think of is I have a few like kind of thumbtack memories, things that where I can remember in quite detail, of course. I guess we all do, but one of them is in the first grade, a large collection of bushes outside of the school, and going in with their friends and playing and deciding it was a spaceship. And my memories have an amber-hued spaceship inside. So I'm like, what would Zoe see? Because my memory is firmly spaceship. I know it's just a bush. So.
Yeah. Right. And in fact, there was a odd little scene I didn't quite understand, where it's at the very beginning, where somebody is watching their brother's rememory, and he says, wow, was that really the color of that boat? Because I remember it being green, but it wasn't green in the recording. But Alan tells him, well, maybe it was green. Well, wait a minute, but the recording showed that it wasn't green. It's
there is the way, like, none of us could know how someone else sees colors.
Yeah, there's the idea of the consensus reality idea, where we all come into a room and there's a chair there, but we're all actually in our own reality. So the chair may be a little different from perspective to perspective.
His brother's eyes saw red, but this other guy's eyes might have seen green. Like the couple of years back, there was that dress that everyone was talking about on the internet. Is it white and gold and blue and black?
Yeah.
Around it was.
What team were you, by the way?
I saw it on different monitors and saw both colors.
Yeah.
So I have no idea.
I'm going to second that, actually, because I went first. I was like, oh, I see it this way, and then someone said, what about? Well, I saw it different. Look at this. I'm like, oh yeah, it is different on your phone.
Yeah, it's screens, right? Like,
now, the only thing I could really make of that scene is that it was foreshadowing the latter part of the movie, because you had a case of a recording showing one thing and a memory showing a different thing, right? Oh, well, maybe it really was green, like it was in your memory. Whereas in the case of Alan, that gets flipped upside down. It really wasn't like it you think it was in your memory. The recording shows what it actually was.
Who gets to what is the recording? You just said flipped upside down. So if it's just the optic nerve, we got to flip all of the recordings anyway, right? Because your brain has to flip everything back. Or are we getting the brain signals, which would account for the dreams and, the sheeple going into the hotel and all that sort of thing?
Or maybe there really were sheep going into the hotel. I mean,
in somebody's reality, yeah.
Well,
maybe not the fish. Yeah, maybe not the fish outside the car window, but hey.
My secondary school, our head teacher was Welsh. So I think on more than one occasion, kids on their final day of school did put sheep in his office.
Now, I did want to mention something. When I wrote my book reviewing the Alien and Predator franchises, one thing I did is I would look up the meaning of names. So the names of the characters and what they meant. And in that book, man, that paid off so well. I could virtually write character descriptions just based on the meaning of their names. And I've kept that up. So for instance, my latest series that I'm writing about movies with UFO and alien themes, I'm still doing that. It doesn't always pay off so well, but that's something I still pay attention to. So for example, in this case, I thought it was ironic that the cutter's last name is Hackman.
Yeah, that was not subtle.
A little bit on the nose.
Now, it's not spelled H-A-C-K.
Yeah, it was H-A-K.
Yeah, but still, like Hack and Alan Hackman with just the H-A-K-M-A-N means precious shopkeeper, which means nothing in this case, or it's just kind of talking about how he's the one who is keeping the shop in terms of I'm kind of just stretching here.
The precious memories, right?
But right, he's turning memories, often horrible ones, into precious ones because he's cleaning them up, right? So he's keeping the shop. And in fact, one scene I found very emotive and man, it was just kind of painful. Okay, is when the little girl, the daughter who has been abused by her father, is talking to Alan, and it denoted the effect that such a technology would have on the generation that's growing up with it. Because what she says is, make my daddy forget. Are you going to make my daddy forget? Right. Well, her dad is already dead. But by make my daddy forget, she's referring to just her little child mind's concept of what's going on and what this guy, this Cutter, is all about. Is, can you make my daddy forget all these horrible things he's done? Right. So that was very, very touching and disturbing, I must say.
Yeah, exactly. Because they keep saying rememory, like this is now the person, which isn't. Right. I don't. Let's just assume that you are your memories, which I don't think I'd want to abide by. But
well, if you're not that, what are you?
Something else. But yeah, the idea is this is the person now. They're not physical anymore. But yes, their memory is now in this nice, condensed glamour shot, package.
But as we've alluded to quite a few times, that is something that's getting closer and closer to being the case.
Oh,
audio issues.
But glamour shots?
I know the term glamour shots.
That's 80s, 90s malls in America, and they just they'd tease. Usually girls would go there, right? They tease your hair and.
Like they're using one of the photo booths they have here, basically.
Yeah, but they'd actually set up this photo, and they had this cheese ball neon background and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking it would kind of be fun if some of these were turned into glamour shots or whatever. So what is it? What you get? What's your package? Digimon card game.
Yeah. 2 decks so me and Rob can play. You're turned off.
Yeah, you gotta unmute.
Me. Okay.
Okay. You hear us okay?
Yeah, my daughter came home and she keeps ringing the doorbell, and I thought, well, my son's going to open the door for her, but apparently he's asleep and not bothering to wake up. So I rang it the 3rd time. I'm like, okay, I got it.
But Matt, someone's got to ring the doorbell for you now, and that'd be weird because you're at my house.
Yeah. Well, the doorbell could be ringing. I'm expecting a package of my own.
Okay.
Let's see. So, Luke, how would you feel about your life recording? You put some of it on YouTube anyway.
Because I guess I am a generation removed from YouTube, in that I kind of am already doing that. I put, every trip I go on, I take a bunch of pictures of, that's a nice view, that's a nice temple, put on my Instagram for my mum to look at and get a few likes. I'm way less connected to social media than I was a couple of years ago. I've mostly quit Twitter and Facebook. But also I put out these podcasts and I talk a lot about shit that I do. I don't have much of a filter on embarrassing stories.
Yeah, well, of course I'm doing all the podcasting. I've been taking a lot fewer photos. I guess it's kind of like my you have certain energy for inspiration. I do the music, I do the podcasting, and something had to give, and that was photos. I barely shoot anything these days.
So during the week, I don't take a lot of photos, but when I go for my hikes, part of the fun is looking for nice photos to take.
Yeah, occasionally I'll still make a snap, but I guess I walk a lot of country miles, but
you walk the same miles every day, right?
Yeah, and there's only so many photos unless there's just amazing weather going on.
No, I think it was in one of the National Lampoon Vacation movies. I think it was the European Vacation, where he's driving by, what is it, Parliament in England, right? And he's just holding the camera out the window, going like this, and that's it, right? So in a sense, it's almost like easy to replace the intimacy of elucidating an experience you had, and you can describe what it was like, or just saying, hey, look at this. Yeah, there it is. And now,
That's
one thing, I don't know if I've mentioned this in past episodes, but one thing I've told my kids is, nowadays you take a photo and everybody says, let me see it. Whereas a few years ago, let me see it meant, okay, wait for who knows, weeks or months until I finish the roll.
yeah.
Then when I'm done with the roll, I'm going to take it to the store, and it'll take them like a week to develop it. So maybe a month or two later, then you can see you can see the photo.
Yep.
One of the trippiest things I have is I went to this hostel in the forest in Georgia with my girlfriend at the time, and we forgot a camera. I think we were using disposables, and we have one. It was actually like expired film, like several years, but I used it, and when we got the photos back, it looked like our little trip taken in the year 2000 came directly from 1974, which was awesome.
That is fun.
I was going to say that too. Once you've waited a couple months to see the photo, if it's terrible, that's it.
Yeah, tough. But what you're talking about with the National Lampoon thing is very true in Japan. If I ever go to like any sort of historical building or a waterfall or anywhere beautiful, I stop, I take 10 minutes, take it in, enjoy a little stroll around it, then I take my pictures. But you see these Japanese families turn up, picture, go. And when I've been out with my Japanese friends, that's all they want to do, and I'm like, I kind of want to stay here and enjoy it for a bit.
Yes. Now, one time I was not too long ago, because I still have a 35 millimeter camera. I was out taking some awesome photos to this city, and we went to a city up north, man, some beautiful pictures. I'm like, okay, I think I'm out of film now. Let me rewind it. I opened it up. There was no film in it.
That happens from time to time. I went to Disneyland and that happened. So, because I had this, it was like a Soviet camera. It's like a Lomo. So one, the lens is weird. Everything comes out like saturated and contrasty, kind of cool looking. But then you could also, it would shoot again if you didn't advance the film. So you could shoot as many images as you wanted.
Like exposures, right?
Right, or triple.
Multiple exposures,
yeah. You could take as many as you wanted.
Yeah.
So I still have it somewhere. And I still have an undeveloped roll from it, which will probably look like it's from 1963.
Wow.
I would have finished that roll probably 10 years ago. But I do just shoot with my phone now,
But so because I did see this film, 15 years ago, I actually have many times caught myself thinking, if something's happened suddenly, I don't have time to take a picture, like an impressive animals across by. I've thought like, man, if only I was just recording my eyes.
Yeah.
So, which I definitely don't think Matt agrees with.
No, I very rarely take landscape shots because I'm like, what I'm seeing is not going to translate to a flat image.
Yes.
No, it's probably a better photographer.
Yes, there's times where I'm looking up at the sky at night and I think, wow, look at this, it's magnificent. Then you look at the photo and it's like all black with a white dot in the center. It's like, just can't capture. It can't capture the feeling and the tingling of your skin, cool wind and everything. It can't.
That's why photography is an art.
Yes.
Like because everyone has a camera all the time these days, people don't realize that photography does take skill and talent and equipment. So people
and there's
think,
genres
why would
too.
I hire
Like
a
there's the photographer. But see, there's a person who would be like, hey, I'm at a get together. Hey, everybody, stop what you're doing. Look over here, smile, and let me get a photo. So that's one kind of capturing the moment. And another would be everyone's doing something. I'm just going to capture whatever it just happens to be that they're doing. Which, by the way, that second genre is the one that I picked up from my dad. He was very much more of the style of I'm just here to capture what's happening. I'm not going to change the event unless, obviously there's times where you're going to say, okay, look at the camera and smile. But generally, I do prefer to just capture whatever is happening.
Yeah,
unfortunately, and unfortunately, now the phones are all made with that horrible clickety clack sound. So everybody, you just took a picture. Like, can this thing just shut up? Can it do it silently?
They've had that in Japan for years, and the reason is because the amount of people who were taking surreptitious upskirt photos on trains.
Oh,
So unfortunately, that might be the reason back in the West, is just because when it's silent, you can take photos that people don't want you taking a bit too easily.
That is worth mentioning. In the movie, everyone's memory, it's just audio and video. I mean, we are missing touch. We're missing, for me, I honestly think maybe my sense of smell is my strongest sense.
I think people often talk about smell is the most nostalgic sense.
Yeah.
Nothing takes me back to a time or place like a smell.
Right. But yesterday.
In fact, no, go on.
I was just going to say, yesterday I was in my
jump in
room.
after you.
I'd actually just finished a podcast and I'm like, what's going on? Because the guy next door, he's smoking a cigarette. So that's wafting in my window. Someone was cutting grass. So that's wafting through my window. And then something, it's just a weird smell. And it turned out the missing element was my mother-in-law preparing garlic, on the first floor. And just the three of those, it was the most bizarre scent. But sorry, your point?
I was just going to mention olfactory memories, which I find are pretty rare, but I've had a couple occasions where I smell something and I know there's absolutely no way that could be real. Okay, so for example, where I come from, we make a dessert called panqueques con dulce de leche. Okay, so I walked into my bedroom one day and I smelled that. And I know for a fact, nobody within 2,000 miles of me could possibly have been making that. It wasn't a real thing. It was just a memory, and it manifests as an aroma. It's really interesting and very rare, I found.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know that I ever get that.
Yeah.
For me, I got, when I was a teenager, there was a guy, I rode around his car, and he'd done something completely stupid the week before, and somehow had gotten a bunch of dirt in his car, which had been cleaned out, but it still smelled, his car smelled like dirt. And we were listening to Smashing Pumpkins' Gish. So anytime I hear that album now, that smell returns to me, right? So I think of the Smashing Pumpkins' Gish as dirt, or at least the smell of dirt.
Dirt don't hurt.
Yes, dirt don't hurt. But that's one that I've always found interesting, that just hearing if you know the album, it starts off with a little bass drum lick, and that drum will just boom, the smell comes right to mind.
So now back to the movie, just to point out that, okay, we have childhood trauma affecting a life, and then coming to the realization that the memory was faulty, and the reality kind of alleviates Alan. He wasn't as guilty as he thought. He hadn't actually caused the death of the child. And so that's very much of a relief for him. But then you kind of switch gears to the intensity of that. Now he's in another predicament, because now he has a Zoe implant that someone wants to pull out of his brain. And so he's kind of settled his own trauma, and there's a release of that, but then he's kind of like, as the saying goes, out of the frying pan and into the fire. And one of your notes said some people are just worth more dead. And yeah. I thought, they say dead men tell no tales, but with this technology, that's not true.
Well, the opposite is true, right? Dead men tell the best tales now.
Outliving your usefulness, right? But yeah, so.
And now the Jim Caviezel character, he's very much of a very one-dimensional character, because we do find out he's been friends with Alan for years, and we kind of get a view into that when he himself is watching some of Alan's memories, look back when he didn't have that fake beard. And he's hanging out, he's buddying it up, but we see him just when he's completely single-mindedly after the memories that he ends up realizing Alan possesses within his own head, and that's like his only focus, period. That is it. To the point where, as you said, he ends up, you said it in your notes, that he ends up chasing Alan across the graveyard with a gun, and he's ready to, I'm going to blow Alan away, just take this implant, but he doesn't do it. He doesn't. At the very end, he recognizes, okay, I can't do this. Unfortunately, he had hired a goon who is there also, and the goon's like, whatever, just blows him away. So
I did have
and
a
that's
thought
it.
if
That's
that
the
was a
end of Alan.
strategy or mercy.
I think it was a strategy of, I don't think I'm going to be able to go through with it, so I better make sure someone else is there.
Right.
I will. One complaint with this film: the guy they had as their like goon character had like an intimidation factor of 0.
Yeah,
He looked like a total dweebus. Like,
oh, okay. I shouldn't say what I said. So you remind me of
But he had a gun.
Yeah, he had a gun.
yeah, but prior to that, there are many scenes where he's meant to just be there to be like, I'm a tough guy. You know,
Oh yeah,
listen
like
to
I'm
me.
gonna have this guy over there talk to you. It's like, sure, I'll talk to him. Why
Yeah,
not?
okay. Does he want to throw hands? No problem.
He did look like he just belonged in a dance club or something. You know, he would have been more at home.
I don't think it was the same actor, but it kind of looked like the dude from that was in Mad Men.
I'm not that familiar with Mad Men.
Okay, that's fine.
But no, when it comes down to it, I think because they emphasize that, I can't remember the character's name, the Jim Caviezel guy.
Fletcher.
Fletcher. Since they emphasized that Fletcher and Alan were friends, I do think he actually completely relented, and he was not going to do it, and he didn't expect his goon to just go on with it. If he even knew that he was there. I
The
mean, I don't
goon's
know if
actor actually is called Michael Fletcher, so that's confusing.
Oh wow, that's wildly confusing.
Yep.
Now name wise, I'm just like, maybe that could be like a, I don't know, like a Fletcher Christian. You know, him and Bly were buddies till they weren't, and he burned the boat down and moved to Pitcairn Island.
Let's see. Fletcher means arrow maker.
Okay, that probably works better than.
Oh yeah, he is making the weapon that's supposed to bring it all down. So
Yeah.
But you got to be on the nose with your names. They're on the nose enough with Hackman, right?
Well, since we did Prometheus, I'm aware of how meaningful the names in the Alien franchise are.
Do you want to make your correction?
Oh yeah, I guess I do need to. When we were talking about Prometheus, and we realized that, I thought one of the members of the audience told us that Sarah is the name of John the Baptist's mother in the Bible, but it's not. Sarah is the
Elizabeth.
name of, but a lot of the passages about Elizabeth were taken wholesale from Sarah. But I liked the idea that John Connor and Sarah Connor is a biblical thing, but it's not quite.
Okay, that's interesting. So, there's so many things. I think we've talked about them before, but then I don't quite remember if it was with you guys.
Well, and there's the problem of sometimes with podcast people, you think you've had a conversation and you just listen to it.
Now, do you recognize the name within the context of The Matrix, Sophia Stewart?
Oh, well, the whole Sophia thing, we got through that a little bit on the Truman Show, actually, where they have another Sophia.
Yeah, no, the actual real life woman, Sophia Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, she's the one.
The actress. Okay.
No, not the actress. No.
No, I think it's the answer to your question. We don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Sophia Stewart, the real life person, is portrayed in the Matrix mythos as the Oracle. Okay. The prophetess, right? That's based on a real person. Now, or so the claim goes. Okay. Now, Sophia Stewart wrote a book called The Third Eye, and that was borrowed from to make the Matrix franchise as well as the Terminator franchise. Okay. Now, what she claims is that the story came about. She claims to be an actual prophetess. Okay, whatever. That's what she claims. And she was envisioning what would it be like when Jesus returns in the future, right? And so she claims that the Matrix mythos and the Terminator mythos are actually one and the same. And it's her vision, whether real or imagined or just sci-fi, about what would that be like. So she said that John Connor, JC, Jesus Christ, right? That's supposed to be that story of him returning in the future, and then the machines coming after to destroy him. Whereas in the Matrix, we're dealing with Neo, which is you can rearrange the letters to be the one, right? He's the one, and he's playing the same part. And she told me that even that's why the Terminator goes back in time, or whoever the Terminator goes back in time naked. Everybody who goes back in time shows up naked because it's a representation of a new birth. And the Matrix, of course, being a reference to generation, right? The Matrix of the womb, and all this stuff. For whatever it's worth, that's her actual explanation, is that both are one and the same, and that's what it's about. And in fact, I posted on my website a review of Matrix 4 based on the script that she wrote for Matrix 4, which is not the one that they're going to use for Matrix 4, by the way. They're making a whole different movie. Her version of Matrix 4 actually pulls together both franchises, and that would have been so cool. But I guess that's just a bit too much. So they're going to go with whatever they're going to go with.
Two franchises.
yeah, we bitched out for not too long ago. Luke brought together the Pokemon and.
When Matrix I was 12, I wrote a Pokemon Matrix crossover fan fiction, which is still online. I found it.
Oh, you found it? Okay, yeah. It's still there.
So. But no, my theory was that actually John Connor represents John the Baptist, and so Jesus in that scenario is Arnold Schwarzenegger. Who died for our sins.
Yeah, he likes Arnold. I guess Dark Fate also put a wrench in that scheme, but because that makes John Connor like whatever.
One of the potential Jesuses.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been a huge tangent.
Okay, but you like Terminator tangents.
Oh yeah, I will turn every podcast into Terminator podcast if I can.
Okay, one more metaphysical salvo at the final cut then, which is relatively mechanistic with a few glitches, as we've seen. So thinking more metaphysically, being the now being the only moment. Of course, what you're doing now affects the future. That's relatively obvious, cause and effect. But there's also the idea of what you're doing now does color the past. Like, again, if you're successful, all those, trials and tribulations that were the worst thing ever when they happened, that's now those, magical moments that made you who you are, right? You've now changed the past.
Well, of course, an actually metaphysical aspect of the movie is that they refer to what the Zoe implant is doing as quote unquote immortality. That's how they're viewing it. Now, I grant you, it's a very sterile, sort of nihilistic, high-tech form of immortality, which has no conscious dimension to it, right? It's just a recording of what once had a conscious dimension to it. But still, that's the way they're viewing it. And this kind of high-tech secular concept is that as long as your life has been recorded, then that's a form of immortality, which of course would get into the issue of what we've been discussing all along, which is which immortality really, your actual recording of your whole entire life and all it comes with, or the cutter version that would clean up your messes.
Well, I mean, it's like, you don't really know what will be immortal anyway. Let's say there's a cataclysm in the coming years, and the only surviving piece of media that makes it is Matt and Luke's sci-fi sanctuary. That is now the scriptures.
Yeah.
That's a link to the past. What we say is sacrosanct,
Well, there's people throughout history, the idea of like, if I am remembered, that's my version of immortality. And that's, your Alexander the Greats and stuff, right? Like their way they wanted to be remembered is that all across a huge swathe of the world, there are plenty of Alexandrias still there.
But in his dying moment, he's like, oh crap, now I'm dead.
Yeah. But was he? Or was he like, yeah, that was good. I smashed it. Nice.
He apparently did spend some interesting nights in the pyramids or something. So
yeah.
Who knows what happened there. But
go back to Arnold Schwarzenegger. When, God forbid, Arnold Schwarzenegger does finally, discard this mortal form and ascend, like, is he going to look back and be like, oh, well, everyone's going to forget about me in 5 years? No, he's going to think, okay, I'm going to live on forever in cinema and politics and bodybuilding. Like, leaving a legacy is the only way we can guarantee that we still exist after we're gone. We can believe other things, but it's the only one we can guarantee.
So that's what I'm saying is, you to call that existing is a category error, right? So, for example, Alexander the Great, who the average person might be able to state one single sentence about Alexander the Great. So that's not so great in terms of immortal existence, right? And what about all those people that have come and gone from life and nobody even has a single memory of them? So I'm saying it's just a different category. It is a futuristic, transhumanist, nihilistic, reductionist version of immortality, which equates to recording events, experiences.
It always comes up, would you like upload your consciousness into a computer, which I've always been, no, I don't think I'm up for that. And I was like, well, maybe I just make a copy of myself and put that there. I was like, the copy would be really pissed off at me, wouldn't he? Why'd you put me here? I don't want to be here. It's the copy. It also doesn't want to be there, right?
Yeah.
If I don't want to be there, it doesn't want to be there. I don't know, maybe it would be awesome and it'd be like, original me
missing out. Yeah.
Original me is missing out. Yeah, but
now that my original is dead and gone, I can finally live it up.
in the computer. Yeah.
Well, that I'm on record multiple times as saying I'm very happy to put my brain in a robot at the end.
that was part of the series Caprica, which is the Battlestar Galactica prequel, was that this girl dies, but she had put all of she had so much social media and stuff like that. And before she died, she had actually created a copy of herself, right? So, and the copy just living on a flash drive, basically. So,
what's interesting is the movie critic Roger Ebert. You guys recognize him?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he ended up in a wheelchair and he was unable to speak anymore. Do you recall that?
I didn't actually know that about him.
No, because he still wrote reviews during that period. So,
so what they did initially is they were using a computer program, much like Stephen Hawking, but he ended up using a British accent for the audio. Okay.
Or Stephen Hawking was British and used an American accent. So.
Well, an American accent. Computer.
Yeah. The accent we could do at the time.
Now, here's the fascinating thing. Somebody ended up thinking, now, wait a minute. Roger Ebert has been on TV for years and years. We have recordings of that. So they took samples of things he said, word by word, and then they turned that into a computer program so that he was able to actually end up speaking in his own words, in his own voice, because of those years and years and years worth of recording. So he was able to do away with the British accent, sorry. But he ended up speaking with his own voice because of that technology. And his wife was, it was a beautiful moment when they were interviewing his wife and she's saying how wonderful it was to be able to hear him in his own voice again after that.
Well, the idea of creating the version of yourself from social media, they are doing. There exists somewhere in the cloud, the social media map. And it's recorded everything you've ever searched, everything you've ever looked at, everything you've liked, downloaded, bought. And they can have a pretty good understanding of what you will do next based on that. You've talked about the example of Facebook knew you were going to have back pain before you had it. I'm probably 10 times more online than you. And it's at the point now where sometimes if I'm writing a message, it knows what I want to say before I say it. I can just keep clicking the next word and it's giving me exactly what I was going to type originally. Because I guess we are pretty predictable.
Yes.
So if you collect enough information, they can create a version of you which more or less does just continue going on as if you were still here. The only difference is, does it have your consciousness?
Right. It's like the concept of pre-crime. Now it's like pre-shopping. Pre-shopping, pre-writing, whatever it might be.
So you used to have to do something completely unexpected.
I think I'm pretty good at throwing those in now and then.
We should probably. Oops. Oh, that was your unexpected thing, was it?
Yeah, I didn't break Netflix. I actually like that.
Yeah, don't break something you like.
But
hey, be unexpected at least.
Back when I lived in the UK, because I had a reputation for being a bit unexpected, if I had been quite normal for a night, my friends would just say, "Look, you've been pretty stable tonight." And that would be my cue. Well, I've got to do something mad, so I'd smash something or get up and take my shirt off. But maybe I was just predictable in how unpredictable I was.
Yeah, that was my second thought. So this movie obviously has a lot to talk about. We've gotten into that. It does have some weaknesses. So that's my intro to the how does it hold up question.
As a concept, I think it holds up better than ever.
Oh, we've been going on for an hour about the concept.
I think this film is more true now than it was when it was made.
Yeah.
But I think that's pretty much what it's got to give you. But it's only like 90 minutes long.
Right.
If this was trying to be 2 hours long and it was this so-so of a movie, maybe I'd feel quite differently. But as it is, it's long enough to give you its ideas. And yeah, maybe it's not actually, it's pretty predictable and trite and by the numbers as a film. And it's a bit like, it's very schmaltzy, but it's a film about schmaltz in a way. So you can kind of forgive that. I would say it's worth watching, but is it worth the effort it's going to take you to find a version to watch? Is the problem.
That took a little work.
I typed it into Amazon and Netflix. I didn't even recognize it as a thing that exists.
Wow.
Matt had to find me a copy.
Yeah, so there's that. And again, post Robin Williams' death, it's watching a depressed Robin Williams isn't that pleasurable, though he is very good.
And a Robin Williams that dies in the movie.
Yeah.
Boot.
yeah, just to double up on that. So last year we did In Time. Where would you rate this with In Time?
I think it's a better film than In Time, because In Time, a lot of my problems with it was that it didn't use its concept very well. Like partway through the film, it's just like, here's just a dumb shooter and none of what it was talking about matters anymore. Whereas this did, every event in the film was about its core concept.
Yeah, we weren't going to send 50-something-year-old Robin Williams to make action scenes.
Yeah, there's like one little chase through the woods at the end. That's about it.
That's not the time you become an action star.
Yeah. Well, unless you're Liam Neeson.
He did Rob Roy when he was younger.
Yeah.
Had sword fighting and stuff.
So yeah, it feels like if you want a film that just, here's a high concept, we're going to explore it for 90 minutes, it does actually do that pretty well. And because you've got a star like Liam Neeson, there's enough human drama there to keep you going.
Liam Neeson's not in this
one.
Oh,
for fuck's sake. Robin Williams. So, on those two levels, it's got enough to carry you through the film. But it's not a perfect masterpiece or anything.
Like Robin Williams, though, that is a complete career shift from Robin Williams being, wacky comedy guy in the early 90s, and Liam Neeson being up and coming, A-list, going to do Shakespeare actor to, insane action star and drama dude, So.
I felt like Robin Williams, he was a wacky comedy guy, but he'd always done real acting as well.
He did GARP pretty early on, so.
Yeah.
But
he'd always done a bit of both, I think.
Yeah. Whereas Liam Neeson just decided to start kicking ass later on, I guess.
Eventually on this podcast, we'll hit his true masterpiece, Bicentennial Man.
Starring Liam Neeson.
Talking about transhumanism.
I've never seen Bicentennial Man, by the way. So.
I don't think I have. I don't think I could.
I did see it back in the day and remember it being good, but maybe it's not. I just liked films with robots. So,
so Kim, what's your QC, your quality control report on this one?
Well, as a movie, I definitely enjoyed it. As a plot, like I said, it resolves itself, and just when you think, okay, we're done with that, oh, now here comes, it's not like it's a brand new development, but okay, now he's out of one problem and now he's into the next one, and it gets resolved basically by what happens to him is what he feared happened to that boy. He ends up dying, right?
Right. Well, the boy's already died, hasn't he? I guess that's the other bug.
He died as a 50-year-old man, not
right, and he died as a young plot convenience. The director,
I was just about to say we haven't been talking about the director or anyone, and I'm wondering.
I looked his thing up. It looks like he didn't do much because this seems like if he had kept making movies, this would be like, you know, like that interesting early experiment, right? But
Right.
It seems, let's see, Omar Name, and
Right.
yeah, he hasn't really made anything since then. He code like 2 movies since then. So yeah, this movie shows promise. Like you could see where this guy would eventually make some really good stuff, but I guess since this movie didn't really take much traction, he didn't.
And it's too bad. I think it definitely deserves more attention on various levels.
Well, like I said, I think if it had come out almost the exact same movie 10 years later, I think people would have talked about it more. Because maybe people would, but at the time when it released, people were like, no one would do that. Who wants to record their whole life? Whereas now it comes out and you're like, oh, right, everyone records their whole life.
It was ahead of its time.
I think it genuinely was, yeah.
So I guess
and I like the look of it too. I do like the look of it. So I was noticing that the girlfriend refers to Alan's apartment as a dump, but the little bit we get to see of it, it's very clean cut. It's kind of sterile because he seems to have nothing like personal, like there's no photos of his parents or whatever, but still it's very chic. It's very minimalistic, and he's got his little setup equipment there. And I don't know why I think she refers to it as such, as a dump, because she views him as being so cloistered. Like essentially, unless he's out looking for her and meeting with the other cutters, which doesn't seem to happen that much anymore, he's pretty much just in there toiling away, watching other people live their lives.
I think multiple characters say, right, that he doesn't have a life of his own anymore. He just lives his other people's lives.
So maybe she doesn't like the smell of rich mahogany.
Or for example, there's the other cutter who has an assistant, and Alan insists, I don't work with anybody else.
Right.
It's a one-man thing. That's it.
Well, I mean, I make music. I'm on my computer, it's like needling out stuff, working post-production. I certainly would not want an assistant on that.
So yeah, a lot of times people are like, can I help you? And it's like, no, the only thing you can do is waste my time explaining to you how to do this. So
yeah,
I thought with him, the point was he doesn't have an assistant because his whole brand is he sees things that you don't want people to see. So it becomes a bigger ask if it's 2 people seeing these things you don't want people to see.
Right. Yeah. I was gonna say when especially the smaller kids, 4 or 5-year-old kids help. In my head, I mean, I always accept it because they're trying to be nice, but it's the help that doesn't help.
Yeah. Yeah, you can hinder me, sure.
Now, I don't want to end the show without asking a question about something in the notes, okay? It says, I remember needing to open doors when teaching in the US. Don't have to in Japan.
When he goes to talk to the daughter, he very clearly opens the bedroom door, which I remember if you were in America, when I was a teacher in America, if you were teaching with basically a female, a minor, you would make it a point to always keep the door open. In Japan, we have plenty of private lessons. It's never an issue. But I remember needing to do that in America. And in Japan, I'm not really, I don't really need to.
Yeah, I hadn't worked with children before I came to Japan. So I was very surprised at how they just want me to play with them, and they'll climb on my lap and we'll tickle them and stuff. And I was like, oh, that would be a big no-no in the UK.
Yeah. And
whereas here, it's like, no, parents want to see that. They want to see that their child is having fun with you, sort of thing.
Yeah, I actually had education training in university. That's what my degree actually is. And they were kind of like, as much as possible, don't make physical contact with students at all, even like little ones.
Yeah,
whereas here, the parents will hand me the child. Sort of
yeah, I've been a soccer coach, and just to do that, I had to have my criminal record to see if I had any. And then, we're definitely told about it. Only do side hugs, and all that stuff is definitely in place.
But tragic. That was basically just because I noticed him doing that. I was like, I used around 2004 is when I would have been doing that, because I would have been teaching environmental education, and that's a little bit before. That's when I did my student teaching, and that was always a point. If you're in the room with the female, especially, you leave the door open. So,
but maybe it is one of these cases where we'd rather create a bazillion Byzantine rules that stop people doing natural things, rather than just like, hold the specific men accountable for the things did.
No, I didn't do it as stupid. I was just like, it was
society-wise,
a reflex, right? Yeah.
is it good that we've completely removed like having human contact from 8 hours of these children's days every day, rather than just be better at identifying people who shouldn't be in these jobs?
And now we have them at their computer sometimes, which which I mean, obviously there are reasons for that, but it's got to play mind games with people,
especially here. I feel like a lot of my kids don't get much attention at home, so they come to me and they get to have a hug and play catch with someone. It's like they're really excited about it.
But
now there's places all over the world where we're all into the social distancing thing, so kids are being taught to look at human beings as biohazardous, toxic, just straight up.
Japan, we always do keep the distance, though the very small children were not, but the very small children anywhere will not. So
even if I tell them to, they're not going to, right? They don't understand that. They're still going to pull my mask off because they think it's funny to laugh at my beards.
Exactly. Because I shave randomly because I wear masks most of the time now. So because while I didn't have hair, I had to shave like once a month, and I enjoyed doing that. So now I'm like, well, no one can see me, so it's once a week now, basically.
But I've taught them to just say, mask off, please, rather than come and rip it off my face themselves. They find it very. I guess they don't see many beards because Japanese men can't grow them.
Occasionally,
they can grow a Fu Manchu. Is that okay to say? I don't know. I think I was cancelled. Yeah. So this is the last Luke sci-fi thing.
I was saying that we already got through Ming the Merciless, so
yeah.
Well, once at work they had a mustache march, and I won in the most disturbing category because I had a Fu Manchu. I the night before I formed it into a Fu Manchu, and I won.
Nice.
No, I was going around with a beard for about a month because having done treatment last year, my hair was curly. And I was like, if I was clean shaven, I looked like someone that belonged on like a sex offender poster. So I was like kind of keeping a 5 o'clock shadow, so I didn't look quite that weird.
Every 5 years or so, I give it a go to see how I look with a mustache, and I always look like a sex pest. So I guess I'm just not old enough to pull one off yet.
But now that we've been busy canceling ourselves here, where can people? Do you have any new books coming out?
Actually, I did publish one just a couple of weeks ago. It is part 3 of Hollywood Aliens and UFOs, and I subtitled it "Close Encounters of the 666th Kind."
All right.
Nice.
Well, that reminded me of first, please finish, and where can people get that?
Oh yeah, well, just stop over truefreethinker.com and everything's right there for you.
I was just thinking, we were on my other podcast, Oral Hygiene, we were talking last week about getting deep enough in the internet with, what was it, first world problems, second world problems, and what was the 10,000?
10,000 problem was, it's just written from the point of view of like a hive worker in a wasp hive.
I'm wondering if the Close Encounter of the 666 times like that, but with more of the beast.
Oh, like if Close Encounters of the third kind, you've already made contact with the alien. 666 times is like you're having an orgy with aliens from every galaxy in the universe.
Just for a number, when I was growing up, my family's from Delaware, and Delaware, at least I assume they still have no sales tax. I don't know if they do, but near my aunt's place was a Friendly's restaurant with a $2.22 lunch, and I'm an only child, so every time we were about to go home, I'd be like, let's get the satanic breakfast, because we all three get the $2.22 breakfast. So because it was still the 90s, you can get breakfast that cheap. I was like, satanic breakfast.
Nice.
It is weird it was priced that way. And
it's a conspiracy, it's a plot.
Yeah, my conspiracy. I wanted a satanic breakfast, but and since it's there, I guess you didn't mention your website, right? The truefreethinker.com.
He said that's where you get the books.
Okay, right. Okay, cool. Do our thing, I guess.
Yeah, so if you're listening to this in the year 2021, and you can support this podcast by going to patreon.com/podcastio. Many thanks if you already support us, but we're just hovering at the level where we break even. So, if you want to keep this online, do maybe throw us a buck. And if you're listening to us many years from now when this episode is played at our funerals, then please remember that I didn't love any of you.
There we go. And maybe I'll put those show notes on Patreon. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yes, do it.
I have all of them, so yeah, I don't.
Do it. Okay.
And that'll confuse the people calling your buddy in Scotland even more.
Well, they understand this podcast. It's just they didn't have a clue what your other podcast was when it started showing up.
Which is
Oral. I'm not plugging your podcast. Fuck you.
I was going to say, you started saying it. That's oral hygiene if anyone's interested. So
I already did our outro,
so get out of here. What are you still doing here, listeners?
We're done. Let's go. Cut.
The final cut.